Hello, it is week 2. We're gonna go ahead and talk about a few things as far as the class and how it's going, how the work for the class seems to be going on discussion boards, about due dates, about our current assignment. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We are doing okay on the discussion boards. I'm impressed with the amount of participation. I'd like to see a little bit more feedback going back and forth, discussing things with each other. The whole point of those discussion boards is to allow you to talk to other people, to get some perspective on the topics that we're talking about, to be able to talk about the themes and the actual work of the writing. I will say there's a discussion board, don't forget about this one, about the class and about questions that you might have. So far, only one person's used that. So you might want to post questions if you have questions about the assignment or about due dates or about discussions, whatever it is. Feel free to use that, that discussion board right at the top of the Moodle page to ask questions. I'm getting some email here and there about different requirements and different due dates. So that's all natural. Those emails are perfectly fine. Really what you should do is if you've got a simple question as far as due dates or requirements or how to do something, you can use that class notes section to ask that. If it's a more particular issue, like you had something going on in your life or you're worried about a grade, then you can send an email to me for that. I don't mind email, but you should use email in a way that you need, that a way that's helpful to you and also helpful to other people. Okay. Let's talk about the course and what's going on with the course. So, particularly with our paper assignments. So I'm going to share my screen and make you stop looking at my face. And we're going to look at the paper assignment, the some of the requirements on the course page. So let's go ahead and do that. So now we're on the Safari page. I think the last time I did this with the class, I had difficulty getting the screen to be shared. So I hope it's coming through this time. I'm going to click on our class. This is our course webpage. This is the class talk that I was talking about before. Click on that. If you have a question, you want to know something, I'm going to respond more quickly in class talk than I will be in other forums for a couple reasons. One, I don't watch the forums as closely as maybe I should, or as maybe as you want me to. I do read them and I give you credit for doing it, but for the most part, I want the forums to be your discussion, so I'm not jumping in there a whole lot. I do watch the class talk more closely so that you can, if you have something that you're concerned about, you can ask me there. So I'm going to scroll through to our assignment. Here is the assignment. I did have a question on due dates on the assignment because I had on the discussion on the workshop, which we're going to look at in just a couple minutes ago, I had changed the due dates. And so I've gone ahead and gone back into the assignment and changed those due dates as well. Let's look at the actual assignment. I hope by now you've already read it. I hope by now you're already working on it and thinking about what's going on with this assignment. But I want to talk about some of the details with it just to help you help your thinking as you're working on your draft for this paper. One of the things I'm going to do here right now is read the assignment out loud to you. I know you can read. Hopefully, if you're taking an online class, you're very good at reading something and determining what you need to do. As our first reading for the course talked about. How do you know what to do in a writing assignment? However, I think it's also helpful to hear a reading assignment come out of your instructor's, a writing assignment come out of your instructor's mouth, just to hear what they're thinking as they're reading it. So let me go ahead and read it, and then we'll talk about it. The call to protest is the name of the assignment. John Trimber, an important scholar in the field of composition studies, says that people usually do not start writing just for the sake of writing. And in other words, nobody sets out just to say, oh, I'm going to write something. Let me see how words look on a page. usually there's a purpose. And this is what Trimber says. Trimber says people write in response to situations that call on them to put their thoughts and feelings into words. People who write typically experience some sense of need that can be met by writing, and accordingly, what a person writes will be shaped by the situation that gave rise to the need. So you have an internal need, an internal desire, or an internal pressure that's requiring you to write, but also you are writing within a situation that's surrounding you and forcing you to deal with matters within that situation. That is what John Trimber calls the call to write. And he believes that because of these situations have similar components, they have a writer, a genre, requirements, readers, every act of writing and every product of writing can be read. That is, we can analyze every moment of writing. Okay, this is an important concept, not just for this writing assignment we're doing, but just for the nature of being a good writer, for the nature of being a good scholar, also for the nature of being a college student who's going to have to read many, many texts throughout your course of your college career. But it's also a really good thing to think about for almost any act of writing that you'll take part in. And I would say any act. If you're going to be doing graffiti on an overpass on a highway, or you're going to be writing the next great American novel, or you're going to be texting a friend to see if they want to hang out that night, almost any act of writing, in fact, any act of writing, you can analyze and you can think about the writing situation. So here's your writing assignment. For your first writing assignment, I want you to analyze a writing situation you've had in the past where you had to protest or argue or demand or persuade in your writing. One of the common things that happens when people read something like that is they think about it for a second and they go, what could I do? Oh shit, I got nothing I can write about. Or they start thinking about something. Oh, I could write about that time when I did that, or I could write about this time when I thought that. But then you think, oh no, somebody's going to think that's stupid, or that's not going to be good. That's not what the teacher's looking for. Please trust me when I say, I want you to analyze a writing situation where you had to protest. That could be anything. You wanted to protest your principal's policy on what could happen in the lunchroom. Cool. You want to protest a bill that you got from a credit card company. Cool. You want to write a protest sign to march in Black Lives Matter march. Cool. Whatever it is, however you're protesting or arguing for something, that will work in this assignment. So the common impulse here would be to select an experience you've had in school, writing an argumentative paper, writing a speech, writing a letter as an assignment, but you've had many more calls to write protest in your life. So think about the multiple possibilities here before you settle on the first one that comes to mind. Any act of writing qualifies and will contain a writing situation that can be read. And again, let me use that term read so that you understand it. I'm not just saying that you can read something to figure out what the words say on a page, but you can read it to understand the writing situation, the meaning, the purpose, how other people might interpret it. You can analyze a writing situation. So after you've decided upon your situation, start to read it by asking yourself some questions. You might, for example, ask, what was your call to engage in conflict? What demands were made upon you as someone who is taking a stand? Excuse me, I'm sorry. Were your readers sympathetic or hostile? What resulted from the situation? What does a situation like this tell you about conflict, protest, or the act of writing? Focus on trying to make the situation meaningful by analyzing it as a subject. Try to use analytical questions to lead you to a specific meaning about protest and or the call to write. The whole point of this assignment is not that you've had an experience that you can write about, that you can tell a story, but that you have something that you can analyze. And because it comes from your personal experience, your analysis of it should be more rich and more developed. You should have some authority to be able to talk about it. But the whole point is to develop an essay, and here I'm going to the next paragraph, that both tells the story of your writing and establishes a meaning about that story. In other words, you should write your essay with a purpose to prove to your readers your claim about protest and or writing. You're not trying to re-argue the point that you were writing in that previous situation. This paper should not be necessarily about Black Lives Matter or about why you shouldn't have to pay your credit card bill. It is not that. You're writing about the situation of writing. You're writing about writing. It's a weird paper, but it's a useful paper to help you get to think about how and why do we write something. In other words, the story you are telling should serve as evidence for the meaning you are developing for your readers. By the time readers finish reading your essay, they should know what your meaning is and why it is important, and they should be persuaded to understand your meaning through the use of evidence. The paper should be about 3 pages in length, carefully prepared, and presented in MLA format. Workshop copies for the paper are due on June 20th. In the discussion board during week 2, and workshop will take place in that discussion board between 6:20 and 6:24. Revision of the paper, and we'll talk about that a little bit next week. Revision of the paper will be due in this module on 6:25. That is the assignment. So I want to just, before I leave my screen, I want to go back down and point out you've got the week 2 discussion, which is asking you to think about these analytical writing situation stuff. And then you've got your workshop for writing 1. That's where you're going to post your draft of your paper. It's where you're going to comment on other people's papers. And it's where you will start to think about revision for your paper. Before you post there, you should also read reading number 4, online workshop. That's the handout for this, one of the handouts for this week. One other thing before I leave, I see reading lecture notes. I've given you grades for your first week of reading lecture notes. You have to do the reading for the class. And if I go back and look at how you're participating online, it's kind of creepy, but I can see everything you do on our Moodle page. I know whether or not you're reading. I know whether or not you've clicked on the boxes, because it will not only tell me whether or not you clicked on it, but how long you actually spent on that screen. I mean, it's possible you could open the screen up, leave it up there for 30 minutes, and then click off of it. And I won't know if you were actually reading during that time or not, but at least I can see what you're doing. You must do the reading for this class. You must watch the lecture for this class so that I can know that you're getting the material for this class. When you do your reading notes, you're going to show me that you've done the reading or that you've watched the lectures. So if you miss something, I can't give you full credit for those notes. For the first week, I've opened it back up for people so that they can resubmit notes if they need to. But that's probably not going to keep on happening for the other weeks. Okay, let's get off the screen. And back to my face. So I want to talk about a couple of things with the workshop and then about writing the paper. The first thing is the workshop here is designed to help you to get feedback on your writing. It is not designed to fix your writing. It is not designed to get you to turn in a perfect paper. I don't care about those things. What I care about is that you are writing a significant paper where you establish a meaning and you prove a meaning in the course of an essay. That's what we're trying to accomplish in this class. All that other stuff, spelling and fragments and formatting, you know, there is some certain level of effort you should be putting into your paper to make sure that you can pass along a paper that is clear to other people. That's a natural part of the paper. I don't grade you on grammar. I don't grade you on formatting. I grade you on whether or not you're accomplishing the goals of the assignment and whether or not you're thinking about this in a rhetorical way, who your audience is, how you're posing this paper. That's what I'm looking for. So I want you to use your workshop to help you work on those things. Comment on other people's arguments. Comment on whether or not they're persuasive. Comment on how their language comes together with their ideas to create something powerful. That's what I want you looking at. You may be uncomfortable doing that at first. That's okay. We're going to get used to it. It's not a scary thing once you've gone and done it, kind of like jumping in a pool. Before you jump off a diving board as a kid, you may feel really scared, but once you jump into that pool, you realize, hey, this wasn't so bad at all. I survived. I'm going to go do it again. Now, doing a workshop may not be as much fun as jumping off a diving board into a pool on a hot summer day, but we can try to make it at least worthwhile. put good effort into the workshop, pay attention to each other, listen to each other, read each other, and try to understand how we are coming together to talk about protest. Your first week, of course, talked about how to do a writing assignment. This week, we're talking a little bit about inventing ideas and how to develop a paper. What we're really talking about through all this is the writing process. And I want to mention a couple of things about the writing process. When you were in third grade or fourth grade, you probably heard about the writing process. When you were in eighth grade, you probably heard about the writing process. When you were in 11th grade or 12th grade, you probably heard about the writing process. And generally in those grades, what the writing process looks like is invention, um, uh, planning, drafting, revising, or maybe it has a couple of other steps in there. It's usually a 4 or 5 step thing. Writing is actually much more complex than that, and it's much more natural than that. We go through a writing process no matter what it is that you write. And you can think about a text that you sent or an email that you sent and how you, or a song that you wrote, and how you went through a process of creating ideas and experiences and evidences and thinking about audiences for that act of writing. We're always going through a writing process, and it's a complex act. The reason why you talk about it in freshman composition is because we are moving now from a type of writing where you've always written for school, and we're moving into a different kind of writing, a writing where you have more power and more agency as the writer. That is what it means to write as a professional. It's what it means to write as a citizen, to learn that your voice matters and your ideas matter and what you are writing about matters, and your audience matters. Think about how very different that is than the paper that you might have written when you were in 11th grade for your English class, where you had to take a pro-con on some big topic. Generally in high school and earlier than that, what you're really learning about is how to do schoolwork. You're not really learning about your own voice or your own power. You're just learning about how to do schoolwork and how to do it right. So when you wrote for those courses in high school, you were just generally putting out whatever would be right so your teacher would accept it, so they would give you a grade so you can move on to the next grade. In college, we've moved on to something different. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to be a professional, to have a voice, to gather power, and to use your voice in a powerful way so that you can persuade others. And that is true whether you are going to become a Wall Street banker or you're going to become a social activist, whether you're going to be a politician or you're going to be a chef. Whatever your role is in the future, you are going to have a professional voice that is going to require you to carry some authority and speak to others in order to persuade them. That's what this class is asking you to do, to practice that voice, to practice your ability to engage with others and to persuade them. So what all that means is whatever your practices were before you came to college, where you were just trying to write about a subject in order to get a good grade, to do everything right so that your teacher would accept it, your practices need to change in college. What you're trying to accomplish in writing for college is to practice your voice, your power, your agency, so that you can become an effective professional, an effective citizen. So, this paper that you're writing, it may be tempting because it is in a 7-week semester and everything's so cramped and everything's so crazy right now. It may be tempting to just write something, to turn it in, to just read this assignment at the last second and type something up and maybe even use your phone. I'm using my phone right here, even though you can't see it. Spend some time. Think about your voice and your power and your agency, and think about your audience and the rhetorical situation. Think about what you care about and what matters, and how you're going to make what matters to you matter to other people. There's been a lot of discussion about this idea that Black lives matter. And you might hear it all the time where people say, well, blue lives matter, or all lives matter, or my life matters, your life matters. What they're doing when they argue with the idea that Black lives matter is they're trying to change the topic. They're trying to change the rhetorical situation. when people argue that Black Lives Matter, they are not obviously saying that other lives don't matter. What they are saying is that for so long in this country, we have ignored the fact that Black lives do matter. And by coming up with this simple phrase and coming up with this simple march, and by fighting the fight to demand that other people recognize that yes, every other life matters, but you know what? Black lives matter, and we have to say it. And if we don't say it, then we are missing out on a major part of meaning when we say all lives matter. When people came up with this, they were creating an argument that had power in the world. And they were looking at the evidence around them, and they were thinking about the audience they're trying to speak to, and they were thinking about the different kinds of audiences, those who will never believe that Black Lives Matter, and those who always believe that Black Lives Matter. And they were trying to say, what's the best thing we can say to both of these groups to make them understand where we're coming from and where we're going? Black Lives Matter is a brilliant rhetorical argument. And the reason why people can do that is because they think about the rhetorical situation. For this first assignment, I'm asking you to think about that rhetorical situation. For this class, I'm asking you to think about the rhetorical situation. And I'm asking you to think about your audience and your writing and the genre and your voice and the power that you have and how you put all this together to make a persuasive piece of writing. Your first assignment, I'm asking you to go back and look at a previous piece of writing to decide how it was persuasive or not as a rhetorical piece of writing. There's a lot of stuff coming at you right now, both technology and discussions and my mug and this picture and this rhetorical situation of the world we're around and the virus and whoever's yelling in the background of your house. And then you got to take this English class that's asking you to turn in a paper within the next 3 days. It's a lot. So I'm going to ask that you have patience for yourself, patience with your classmates, patience with the people who are screaming in your background, patience with the technology, patience with me. Let's work together to figure out together how we can be more effective in our various rhetorical situations. Work through the class, do the class, get the class done, because at the very least, we want to get this requirement out of your way. But have patience and try to learn something. Use the class questions if you got any questions. Send me an email if you have something more private. You get on the discussion boards, do a great job at the workshop, give each other lots of great feedback, and let's remember, Black Lives Matter.